Good day to the viewing and listening public. I am Godfrey Brooms and this is the Progress Report. Today I have with me the Minister of Public Works, the Honorable Bishop Juan Edghill. Minister Edghill, thank you for being here with me.
A very good evening and thank you for having me. I think it's my first program that I'm doing with DPI and for this year. So best wishes to you, your family, and all the people of Guyana for 2021.
Thank you and same to you. Starting this program off, Minister, there are some concerns about the intent to remove Opposition Member of Parliament David Patterson from chairing the Public Accounts Committee. Could you give an overview of the dilemma in the PAC and also state the rationale behind the motion to remove him as chairperson?
Well, Godfrey, I regret that the members of the governing side of the Public Accounts Committee would have had the need to, even by way of motion, bring to the committee for the removal of Mr. Patterson. By convention and practice, a person preserves their personal dignity when they come under question, scrutiny, or you are being investigated. You step aside to facilitate, allow, and to ensure that you could never be accused of interfering with the process. The Public Accounts Committee is a committee that by constitution and standing orders, stating it must be chaired by a member of the opposition. Even though the opposition have a minority, the chairmanship is with the opposition because this is a committee that examines and scrutinizes the government and government spending. Here we are at the PAC. At this particular moment, we are not examining spending by the PPPC. We are examining spending by Mr. Patterson and the government that he was a part of. The Public Accounts Committee is examining the public accounts for the years 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. All of these years, Mr. Patterson was a member of cabinet that authorized spending. And now it is known in the public that during that period, Mr. Patterson benefited by extremely expensive gifts that came from agencies that were directly under his ministerial control, gazetted as such. So how could Mr. Patterson, with a clear conscience, serve the interests of the people of Guyana, of scrutinizing spending by his government when he personally benefited from the squandermania that took place? So let's put it in layman's language that everybody can understand. An agency buys a bangle or a bracelet for 700,000, 500,000, gives him a gift certificate for 516,000, buys him expensive gifts of 350,000, whatever the figure is. would the people of Guyana have confidence in such a person presiding over a committee that is scrutinizing the spending of the very same people who give to him these expensive jewelry? And to put it, he lied that he never received and only admitted when incontrovertible evidence was presented to the public by me, providing vouchers, receipts, and all the rest of it. So you lied, you denied, and then you tried to trivialize your acceptance by saying, this is something that has happened across the board. So there was never any acknowledgement of wrongdoing, that this ought not to be. How could such a person speak to a permanent secretary, a head of a budget agency, about infractions and violations that the Auditor General will find in those reports that they're before the committee to answer? We have just finished examining the Ministry of Public Works. Sorry, the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, which is now the Ministry of Public Works. 2016. A significant part of the audit report of 2016 was about the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, the Durban Park spending, scales that were paid for that were never delivered, overpayment by contractors, and the list go on. Who was the minister at the time? Mr. Patterson. For the hearing of those things, he excused or recused himself from the chair, and German Figueroa MP presided. Of course, I recused myself as the Minister of Public Works because I would have been questioning officers that I have direct control over. And that would have appeared to the public as intimidation, being coerced, or driving fear. So I never sat in those deliberations and asked the questions of those agencies that were being examined that are under my control. But Mr. Patterson was part of a cabinet. The former Minister of State, Joseph Harman, came out in his defense, now opposition leader. The AFC put out a statement saying that they're in full support of him. You know what they're actually saying? They expect that if matters of such a similar nature should arise, they're expecting him to use his office as chairman to cover for them. How could the interests of the Guyanese people be served in such an environment, in such recklessness? So what we simply did was to say to Mr. Patterson, look, you should remove yourself from being the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. You could remain being a member of the committee because we cannot determine who the opposition puts as members of a committee. That is done through the committee of selection. If the opposition determines that they would like Mr. Patterson to sit in the public accounts as a member, that's the opposition will have to live with that. But when you chair a committee, you're not just merely representing the opposition, you're representing the whole committee. And the whole committee must have confidence that you will discharge your functions in a manner that will inspire confidence and will not bring the committee into disrepute. So we say to him, you should remove yourself as being chairman. Any other member of the government, of the opposition, can take the chair. And if you don't remove yourself, well then by way of the committee, a motion that will be put to a vote we will have to determine your chairmanship. Now, Mr. Patterson is sitting down as the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee. When a motion is moved, asking on him to vacate, to give up and allow another member from your side to chair. We don't have the kind of confidence that you will discharge your responsibility that will inspire confidence and not bring the committee into disrepute. At that stage, for the purpose of the debate, he should have recused himself. Because the subject of the motion is him. An affirmative vote directly affects him. But what he does. Yesterday, Mr. Patterson presides over a debate that is about him and that will affect him. A clear conflict of interest. And what he did, tried to use his chairmanship to block the debate and to block the vote. So he had his colleagues in a well-choreographed fashion seeking to bring again the famous arguments that Guyanese are so accustomed to, similar to 34 is the majority of 65, and the use of the English language, like if we have to go to the CCJ to interpret the standing orders and what the standing orders says and what the standing... So the same behavior that the APNU AFC displayed as it relates to the no confidence vote that was taken in 2018, the same style, semantics, fancy machinations and footworks, seeking to obfuscate and go wrong in circles, delay, and add to that environment. Mr. Patterson sat as chairman of that meeting, allowing members of his side to hurl personal insults to members of the governing side. Young people who don't have the level of intelligence and experience, like the illustrious Madam Gail Teixeira, who everybody in this country recognizes as an authority in parliamentary matters and the standing orders, hurling personal insults to her. We had to send for the clerk of the National Assembly, Mr. Isaacs, who came and simply clarified, number one, the motion was properly put. Number two, it should be proceeded with. And the logical thing is to take the vote by way of a division. When Mr. Patterson, who presided over the debate, realized that he's now cornered because they could no longer use their bullyism, their insults, their extraneous arguments, their spurious claims, their infantile political behavior to obstruct what was clearly designed to ensure that the committee does not come into disrepute. He got up from the chair and abandoned his post saying, I'm recusing myself. Somebody from the opposition needs to take the chair. Fully well knowing that Mr. Figueira had already gone to him while he was still sitting in his chair presiding, that the agreement and the instructions that was given is that none of them should take the chair. And it's instructive to note that while that was happening in the Parliament chambers, almost all of the opposition members were logged in virtually to the committee meeting that was taking place in the Parliament chambers. So Parliament was left in a limbo. So let me make a couple of points clear. Number one, we're not seeking to remove Mr. Patterson as a member of the PAC. We are saying because of his own actions and what he has not yet clarified with the people of Guyana, and where documents have shown that he is compromised as it relates to public spending, We can't have the confidence in such a man to conduct the business in such a way to ensure there will be full scrutiny of public spending. Secondly, we are simply saying that action must be taken. And that action must be taken first at the level of the committee, which was ratified by the clerk. The committee has a right to bring a motion. And the motion was properly put. But like sore losers, when you can improve your argument, you go to personal attacks. And this is something that the PNC, APNU, AFC is noted for. Every time they are cornered, they go to the well-known, worn, and tired strategy of invoking race. Whenever they are cornered and they can't improve their arguments and they can't get out of the web they've tangled for themselves, they go to personal, vile, personal attacks. But I'm grateful for the fortitude, the strength, and character of our colleagues. We stood our ground on the point of principle, because this is what it was all about. Where we go from here, we don't know. I don't know who Mr. Patterson is trying to fool. Everybody in Guyana know he lied. The man said he never got any jewelry. He never wore any jewelry. It was the manager then of the general manager of the then Demerara Harbor Bridge, who told me as a subject minister he was not the only one who presented expensive gifts to Mr. Patterson. It was a norm. Every year in May, around his birthday, expensive jewelry, gift certificates, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was only when I produced a document that had his signature that he was actually approving an expensive gift for Minister Ferguson. When I said, even if you didn't know the price of the gifts that were being bought for you, you're approving one now for Ferguson. Did something register to you and stop it? But he said, proceed. He fully well knew, Mr. Brooms and the people of Guyana, what would cause an agency to give you a gift certificate for $516,000? Even if somebody's giving you a gift certificate, it would be like 50,000, 100. Even if they want to give you 500,000, why would it be 516? I could tell you why. Because he went window shopping, saw what he wanted, the value was 516,000, and the instructions to the agency make the gift certificate $516,000. That is the man you want to be chairing the Public Accounts of Guyana, to ensure that people are spending your tax-paying money correctly, ensuring contractors are not overpaid, ensuring that you get value for money. That's the kind of man you want as your chairman? The answer to that is no. So when we in the PPPC acted yesterday, we were serving the interests of the people of Guyana.
What needs to be done next at the next PAC meeting in the quest to remove him as chairperson? Does the motion has to be relayed?
I don't want to definitively pronounce on this, but I can tell you, if the meeting was aborted, any meeting that is reconvened, that's the item on the agenda. That's where you start. So, I don't know what he will do or what the opposition will do. But that is the item on the agenda when the meeting was aborted. And if a meeting is reconvened, that is the item on the agenda to be discussed. But Godfrey, let me just say this. And I want to put this in its widest perspective that people of Guyana could understand. This move by the APNU AFC to behave in such a strange manner that because we are objecting to Mr. Patterson, no other member of the opposition will chair the PAC, is not only designed to hide the misdeeds, the squandermania, the mismanagement of their era, 2016, 2019, which is before the committee, but there are two other important agenda items to be addressed. Number one is the approval of the budget for the Auditor General's office. It is the Public Accounts Committee that has to approve the budget of the Auditor General. And the budget of the Auditor General is presented to the National Assembly by the Public Accounts Committee. If the PAC don't approve the Auditor General's budget, the Auditor General don't have funds to do his work, to ensure scrutiny of public spending. And secondly, the other item on the agenda that we have to address, apart from examining their era of spending, is the reconstituting of the Public Procurement Commission. It's the Public Accounts Committee that spearheads that whole process of the reconstituting of the Public Procurement Commission. And the Public Procurement Commission is that watchdog organization constitutionally empowered to ensure that the procurement process and the procurement laws are properly followed. And I dare say it was the Public Procurement Commission that cited Mr. Patterson as it relates to the Demerara Harbour Bridge feasibility study, that he took an unsolicited bid to the cabinet for approval. An unsolicited bid is a bid that is under the table. It didn't follow process. Remember, he's now charged in a court to answer for those matters. But it was the Public Procurement Commission that pronounced against his conduct while he was a sitting minister. So I guess the PNC, APNU, AFC has an axe to grind. So if they stall up the work of the PAC, their period in government and their misdeeds and their squandermania and their extravagance will not be made public. And secondly, they will stymie the work of the Auditor General and prevent the reconstituting of the public procurement commissions. Things that this country could ill afford to happen. This has serious consequences for transparency, accountability, and good governance. So, at the level of the Parliament, I'm sure there is some kind of a discussion on next steps, of which I will not pronounce on at this program, because we cannot be kept in a limbo forever. People have their own theories of what is next and what's not next. I prefer to wait on my learned colleagues in the law and constitutional practice and authorities understanding orders, including the Council of the Clerk of the National Assembly, to guide us on what's next. But I can tell you clearly, we are not going to accept a Public Accounts Committee that is supposed to be holding the bar up high, where past permanent secretaries, present permanent secretaries, public officers, heads of agencies, regional executive officers, everyone who was responsible for spending government money have to come and answer the hard questions. And the man who's presiding over that, in our answer the questions publicly, how you could accept these kinds of gifts, why did it happen, and why you didn't stop it. Knowing fully well that he lied and denied it never happened, and he was caught in a web, and he had to accept, and he's trying to trivialize it. We can't allow that to happen in this country. And that's the case that is being made. So no amount of the spin doctoring and the maneuvers and the misinformation. You know, during the period of time when we had the recount, we had a big tent. And every afternoon they had certain characters will go under the big tent and spin a narrative. The big tent, physical big tent is dismantled. But the mentality is that if you go out there, you spin a narrative, your supporters will buy this story and they will believe. If that is what the new AFC wants to continue to do, I will then deem them as shameless, highly indecent, and not worthy of having the support of the people of this country. No wonder they're in opposition. And this is the challenge that we have. We have a country to build, a country to modernize. Mr. Patterson should be there seeking to give, if he can find constructive suggestions, and all of his other colleagues, to ensure that we modernize Guyana, that we get the new bridge, we get the bridge across the Quarantine River, we expand the 4-lane highways, that we get the hotels that President Ali is talking about built, that we get the improvement in electricity for hundreds of megawatts to ensure that we could do industrialization and manufacturing and agro-processing. We must ensure that we have the new ferries to cut travel time and to connect our people, and our aerodromes are all taken care of. And the cry of everybody for street lights and road safety and better roads and better drainage are all implemented. We cannot remain a third world country forever. We got to move forward. President Ali is leading a charge in this regard. The last 6 months, everybody, including supporters of the AP and UFC, they are reporting progress. Just before I got in here, someone sent me a WhatsApp message. Thank you, Bishop Edghill, and all those who are responsible for giving us our COVID-19 cash grant. I just received mine. That is the nature of the country that we are in. So we don't need these petty fights at a public accounts committee, and we don't need these petty fights and illogical, irrational arguments that we heard last week in the debates of Parliament. We need a responsible opposition that recognizes the people of Guyana placed you in opposition. There's a government that is in place with a vision and a mandate. Hold their feet to the fire. Criticize constructively. Bring the suggestions for a better Guyana. Bring motions to the improvement of Guyana. But not continuing to be dubious and diabolical and deceptive in your approach. It will not help our people. We have to advance Guyana together, because everybody, the only thing is progress is on their minds. So that's my case, Godfrey.
Thank you so much for the update on the PAC. You mentioned the COVID-19 cash grant. You recently distributed $92 million to Amerindian communities in Region 10. Could you shed some light on the distribution, and why is it necessary, the community grant distribution?
The Finale-led PPPC administration acknowledges that we have a number of vulnerable groups in our country. Women, children, the disabled, but also Amerindians. And when you have a pandemic, like what has gripped the world, the private sector, the small businesses, the entrepreneur, the households all felt the effect. So we came out with the 25,000 per household cash grant, so to support households. Then we had measures in place to help small businesses. Big businesses were able to benefit from some of the measures, budget measures that were implemented in the 2020 budget that helped them to breathe and to flex their muscles and to keep moving. But our Amerindian brothers and sisters in the hinterland and riverine communities, with all of the challenges that they had before COVID made it difficult for them. And we felt that working with the Amerindian village councils and injecting sums into each community, that the community will determine how they spend it, not just for a one-off meal, but to do something that could revive their village economy, build their capacity, and ensure that they come out of this era head above the water so that they could advance their levels of prosperity. That is what we did by these cash grants. So, yesterday I had the privilege for the 9 Amerindian communities in Region 10 to make their checks available. Other colleagues across Guyana would have been doing the same thing. And that is a demonstration of our government's understanding of the plight and needs of its people. Not just coastland, but hinterland. And it was certainly well received. The Tushos and the village leaders were quite happy with the intervention. And we charged them to ensure that the village and the village economy benefit from those one-off cash grants to the various communities.
Thank you so much, Bishop Edghill. Moving on to more infrastructural projects. 21 companies would have submitted bids, with one retracting, to construct the new Demerara River Bridge. Could you tell me the status of the bids?
Currently, the procurement process, you advertise, bids are submitted at the National Procurement and Tender Administration Board. After bids are submitted, they are evaluated. And after they are evaluated, then you make an award. At this stage, for the expression of interest, the 21 bids that came in, the 20 that are being examined after the one would have withdrawn, they are with the evaluators. These documents were quite voluminous. The evaluators, based upon the criteria, are currently evaluating those bids. And I suspect in a short period will come to an end, and then we will go to the next stage of getting that group who, out of the 20, based upon the evaluation criteria and the criteria that was established in the call for expressions of interest, of getting that those six companies who will then go to the next round, so that we could be able to pick from that 6 the company that will build the bridge. So we are still at the evaluation stage.
Thank you, Minister. Could you also provide an update on the roads being reconstructed or refurbished and those planned to be by your ministry?
Well, Godfrey, I think across Guyana, everybody is seeing work in their community. Some people are waiting on their particular street to start, but they are seeing others that are already under construction. Because the Ministry of Public Works work program, especially its miscellaneous roads work program, there are more than 162 roads that are currently under construction in all 10 administrative regions. In our hinterland road program, there are roads that are being constructed in Mabaruma, in Maruka, in Yarakita. The road from Oriala to Kukwani is under construction. The road to Peruni is under construction. Developmental works in Bartica, Region 7. In our urban roads program, works are taking place in all of the various towns, whether it's rehabilitation or new. So across the country in terms of roads, and roads have to be accompanied accompanied by drainage. But Godfrey, since we are on this subject of roads, please allow me to address two very important issues. One, weight restrictions. Now, so if we fix the D-Hoop Road, the Blackbush Portal Road, the Burma Road, or we fix the Peruni Road, or the Madja Road, or the Tiger Creek Bridge. Quite recently, we now realize we have to do some emergency works at Surama Bridge. And we get all of this work done. And trucks carrying overweight go back on these roads. What do you expect will happen? Damage to the roads. We've just completed the construction of the bridge at Hogg and Sussex Street. It's currently still being closed off because the concrete needs curing time. And very soon we will open up that bridge. A bridge that falls under the main city council that we had to step in and do because they were not doing it. But what was it that happened there? A container truck reversed, collapsed the entire bridge. We have to have responsible behavior as it relates to the weight we put on our roads. People want to have a truckload of sand. And on top of that truckload of sand, 2 slings of cement. The axle of the truck is only meant to carry a certain amount of weight. And after you overweight it, the weight is no longer on the axle. It is going directly on the road. And the roads will crack. The roads cannot take the kind of pressure, especially when our roads are being built in the kind of conditions that we have to build them. Clay, in the hilly sand and clay area, in the laterite areas, with heavy rainfall, with canals bordering them, the way you could have slippages. We have peculiar circumstances. So the issue of weight restriction must be a national conversation. And secondly, drains. Now, everybody would like their drains to be cleared and water is flowing. But this is what people do. They dig their drains and they take the mud and pack it on the shoulders of the road. Now, the NDC, the RDC, the contractor, the housewife, the farmer, the young man who wants to clear up, everybody packs everything on the shoulder of the road. We have rainfall in Guyana. If when the rain falls, the water can run off the road to the drains because the shoulders are blocked, and the water remains on the road, you're undermining the road. Because in order for you to keep roads in good shape, you have to have drainage for the water to run off. And every time people encumber the shoulders of the roads and water is unable to run off, look and see what's going to happen. A big pothole is going to develop. The road is going to start cracking. It's going to start sinking, going to have slippage, especially with the overweighted trucks and vehicles. So we have to get the users of our road to be more conscientious. We cannot try to kill the beast with a one haul of carrying everything at one time while you are making a profit, a big profit, I should say. You are causing the state significant sums, and you are causing your brothers and sisters great inconvenience. And then, if you're going to dig the drains, which we must do, we cannot leave the mud, the grass, and other debris at the corners or at the shoulders of the road. We got to dispose of it to the dump site or to the sanitary landfill site. We got to move it off so that the roads can drain. So while we are doing exceptionally well in terms of our miscellaneous roads program, our urban road program, and our hinterland program, we are faced with those two challenges. We don't want to build a road and then a few months after we got to come back because some overweight truck break the edge of the road. Because, you know, when these trucks come in a little village road to carry some construction material because somebody's improving their house and they stop. When they're ready to start and they start digging those wheels in to move off because of the weight, check the impact of what's happening on the road. So we are making progress in our roads, in our drainage. You would have seen across the city for Christmas, even though it is not our direct responsibility, Cabinet, the President made the necessary intervention to ensure that the citizens of Georgetown must be well served. And we went out with a massive desilting and cleaning campaign, and that helped a lot of people in that rainy season. They didn't flood. The people of All Boys Town, they were singing praises, Tiger Bray. The people in Queenstown, Kingston, that was already always flooded. The people in Guy Hawk, South Ronville Garden, Lane Avenue, Alexander Village, Lodge. And I could call the other areas, but we went out there with small contractors. It didn't only create employment, but it ensured that the sufferings of the people were alleviated. And we are continuing with that. Street lighting is another major issue that we are making progress on, because everybody who have a theft or who's concerned about their own security, they're either writing letters or calling or coming to the ministry. We need lights in this area, we need lights in that area. We've been responding to that. We are looking at the possibility of a massive street lighting program. I would not speak a lot about it now, but it is something that we are studying, the cost and all the rest of it. We are looking at that. City fences. You would recognize that in the midst of all that has been happening, we have stabilized this whole issue of emergency works because of flooding. We have awarded significant contracts, billions of dollars. We have several contractors across the country at different locations shoring up our city fences, replacing some of what was inadequate, maintaining what has been there. And we need the collaboration of everyone. The farm to market roads, we are continuing to work on that. And of course, like President Ali has been leading the charge and speaking about the opening up of new roads. The road from the Demerara Harbor Bridge all the way into Perica. The road from Perica, the Del Conte Road all the way into Goshen. We're looking at the connection between Bartica and Tamiri. We're opening up new opportunities for farming, for housing, for manufacturing, for agro-processing, for plantation agriculture, making it safer and easier for the delivery of social services, health, education, ensuring pure water, getting pensions to people. Our whole work is integrated. It is not the Ministry of Public Works in a standalone environment. But we must be able to get a road that the children could get to school, you could get to the clinic. We must be able to, if they have a road, that if there's an emergency, you could get to the hospital. We must have the aerodromes safe for medical evacuation, so the movement of tourists. We must have the airstrips and the aerodromes safe for the miners and the businessmen who are making investments into our interior to get there and get back out. So it's an integrated development approach. And with new investors coming on board, we have to ensure that we have the physical infrastructure. The Demerara Harbor, the Demerara River is properly dredged to be able to bring in the goods, be able to get the shore bases built. We must be able to get the facilities that accommodate the emergence of the oil and gas sector and the needs that accompany that in place. So it's a massive work, it's an interagency work, it's an interministry work, and we are working together. We have to improve standards, because with the kind of construction that is going to be taking place, our architects, our engineers, we got to improve standards that we could hold people accountable. We don't want failures and death and loss of life and injury. We have to think about how we could do things better in terms of road safety and traffic control. So it's a massive integrated approach that is being directed and aligned with the transformative development agenda of the government.
Bringing you back, Minister, to the preservation of roads, how is the issue of overladen vehicles going to be addressed or can be addressed?
Well, there are two things that we'll have to start doing. We'll have to have mobile scales. And while people would tell me, find them, but if I have a mobile scale and someone is with an overweighted vehicle, go on the scale and they're overweight, and I find them 50 to 20,000, the damage is done where they just pass, and where they're continuing to go, the damage will be made. My solution is let them unpack right there. And once you start having them unpack and they have to go and get another truck to move it, the word will get around. So we have to do random weighing and demand on unpacking. It's like when you go to travel. If they say your suitcase is 70 pounds and you shop at the airport with 80 and 90 pounds, what the airline makes you do? Take out something. You got to keep it in the weight restrictions. We got to do that with the trucks and the canters and the haulers. And once we start doing that, we're going to get compliance. But at this stage, I think we're at the stage where we're asking for voluntary compliance, moral suasion, appealing to the goodwill of people. This is our Guyana. We can't brook it up in the everyday language. We can't brook it up. We're trying to build it. So when there's a grade and a shape of a road, you can't bring out a whole lot of logs that is way beyond what is allowed. And the rain is falling. You'll make deep holes. The car coming behind, the minibus coming behind is going to be affected. But you have your money because you were able to make a quick haul. We got to get people to start thinking in a certain way. Guyana's development. We all got to eat. And I want to get that message out clear, Godfrey. The Irfan Ali administration, the PPPC government of today, is a government that is providing a framework to ensure everybody get a piece of bread. Everybody must participate in its development. Everybody must go together. And I'll give you a good saying to think about. When the tide comes in, all the boats rise. Small boats, old boats, wooden boats, steel boats, fiberglass boats, ferry boats, cruise ship boats, boats with holes. When the tide comes in, all the boats will rise up. And when the tide of prosperity comes to Guyana, everybody, despite of religion, ethnicity, culture, geographical location, orientation, ideology or persuasion, everybody will be able to be part of that developmental process. And those are the kinds of policies. And we are creating that kind of a architecture, an incentive schema that facilitates that kind of an approach. A people-centered, pro-poor, pro-working class, pro-development approach. And that's what we are noted for, and that's the trademark. And our democratic credentials are heavily marked and applauded by those trademarks.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Minister, in terms of future development plans, especially in 2021, from your ministry?
Well, Godfrey, to say not just for my ministry, but to say to all of Guyana, our greatest assets are not the buildings that we live in or the school, the size of the building we go to school in or the hospital. We need all of that, and we got to fix that. But our greatest asset in Guyana are our people. And we have to pay attention to the safety of our people, especially in a COVID-19 pandemic environment, the success of our people. We have to safeguard lives and livelihood. So whatever we do must be people-centered. And I think if there is something that we should be applauded for, is that people-centered approach. Working for people, doing what is good for the people, advancing the good of the people, So at the Ministry of Public Works, if we build a sidewalk, it's with people in mind. We recognize this area, hundreds of people traverse there every day. The traffic flow is enormous. We don't want the trucks and the buses hitting the people. So we give people a chance to be able to commute, the pedestrians to walk safely, and that's with people in mind. When we put up traffic signals at various junctions, we're thinking about people. We want to ensure that the women who are driving are not taken advantage of on the road by the minibus bullies. We want to ensure that the reckless truck drivers who, because of the size and the strength of their vehicles, could force others off, we have traffic signals that say stop and let this flow of traffic go. We're doing that with people in mind. When we build our city fences and our farm-to-market access roads, is to ensure food security, to ensure that we can get viability for communities. They could do their farms, they could get their produce to market so that people and families could survive. So whether you're a poultry farmer, a cattle farmer, a rice farmer, a cash crop farmer, your life and livelihood must be preserved. And I'm just speaking here from the standpoint of the Ministry of Public Works, but all across our ministry, whether it's education or health. So when we make an intervention of improving an aerodrome or an airstrip in the interior, we recognize every day it's people who land there and people who take off there. Getting in the proper signals, the lighting in the night, in case there's need for medical evacuation, ensuring that the airstrips are properly drained and not waterlogged, the hours that people have to sit sometimes in various parts of Guyana waiting for the rain to subside and this airstrip to blow according to them before you could come in or get out. We are doing this to improve people. And that's where we are. So in every sector where we are working, the liberalization of the telephone sector is to make the lives of people better. We must have more bandwidth. More bandwidth will mean that we can have more investment in call centers. And that's about people, more jobs for our young people. The healthcare would be enhanced. Delivery of online education as a result of some of those interventions in the telecommunications center. So everything comes back to how it benefits people. So we have 8 new hotels built. Oh yes, we will have the tourists coming. The airport will be busy. The girls and boys who are doing services, the taxi drivers, the nail technicians, the beauticians, even the restaurants and bars, they'll be booming with business, but it's more disposable income in the pockets of Guyanese, because we know tourism is a great job creator, an income earner. It's all about people. When we manage our oil and gas resources and we bring gas to shore to ensure we get power, and all the negotiations that we're doing, we're thinking about our people in mind. Cheaper electricity, what it means to the individual, the family, the businessman, the community. Profits from oil, how it could help to develop all of Guyana. So you're going to see us at work as we make progress in Guyana over the next 4.5 years, because we're just about 6 months, and we'll be working for the people of Guyana. You have our word on that. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Minister, and it has been a pleasure having you here, and I look forward for more discussions with you throughout the year 2021. This has been the Progress Report. Goodbye for now.